The idea behind Vision 2030 is to shift the mix of the economy for Saudi Arabia to become a net exporter. And one of the things that's hard to export is energy. You have to move it, it's physical, it costs money. Electricity, transporting it over transmission lines is very expensive. Data is very cheap to move. Think about a phone call that you make around the world. So since there's plenty of excess energy in the kingdom, the idea is move the data here, put the compute here, do the computation for AI here, and send the results. And so what we're doing is we're building out an enormous data center here. So we've already deployed 19,000 chips. We're going to expand that significantly with this investment. And that's going to lead to, well, actually, we're already the largest compute cluster in the Middle East and possibly even in Europe, just from Dammam.
Right. Where are these chips coming from?
So we actually make our chips in the US, upstate New York.
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York.
Okay, so US-made chips coming into Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
How do they compare to the likes of, NVIDIA's best offering?
So NVIDIA's best offering is very competitive, but we offer something very different. It's a little bit like the difference between dial-up and broadband. GPUs are dial-up. They're great. When you don't have access to the internet, getting dial-up's great. We offer broadband. So when you use our chips, you usually get the results 10 times faster. But also the other problem is the cost of AI. Right now, there's a bunch of people just starting to get used to AI and they're using it and their bills are kind of low. Once you start using it heavily, your bills grow dramatically. And it doesn't help if you're fast, if you're also expensive, because the faster you are, the more AI you use. Like think about doing a chat GPT query and waiting 10 minutes for a deep research result. That's 10 minutes where you're not asking follow-ons. If you're fast, if you deliver that answer in a minute instead of 10 minutes, you now ask 10 times as many questions. So what we also do is, in addition to making it fast, we actually make it much more affordable. And so now you can handle AI with a more limited budget.
Okay, and this is ultimately the enablement that Groq is trying to deliver to the kingdom. Okay, so let's talk about what else is happening here, because you're also working with Aramco's digital arm and Humane as well on this new cluster. This is the 20,000 chip cluster that you were talking about here in Saudi Arabia. Talk to me about that collaboration. Ultimately, what's the end goal here? And what did you make of Humane? Because this is the Arab world's first LLM, at least coming out of Saudi Arabia. Seems like it's received a pretty positive response so far, but of course, key barriers remain with that LLM.
So the way to think about it is we signed a deal with Aramco Digital itself, and 51 days after signing that deal, we actually had the 19,000 chips up and running inference in the kingdom. And today we serve about 150 countries from Saudi Arabia. One of the applications that we serve is Humane Chat. That's the chat for the kingdom. There's also some stuff coming in the near future, maybe even this week, that you'll hear about, that's also running on the Groq LPUs in Dammam. And so the main thing here is everyone needs AI in order to automate government services and things like this. This is where sovereign AI is coming from. And just like you have shortages on energy, you can have shortages on compute. By building the compute here, we assure that the kingdom has all the compute that they need for their services.
So how does this LLM compare to the likes of a ChatGPT today, for example?
Well, it's just as robust and capable of doing all that. It's optimized for interfacing with the kingdom. So if you need to be able to ask about something here, it has all the data that you need to get the appropriate answers. Whereas other LLMs haven't been tuned, they don't have access to a database that's as rich with information about the local region.
So there's obviously a lot of development happening in this space. You're a key part of this. We hear a lot more about sovereign AI now as well. Nations want their own compute, their own models, as we're seeing here, their own data sovereignty as well. The region itself, the GCC, wants to become a global AI hub. So what would you say is the biggest competitive advantage, and what's the biggest challenge right now?
Well, it goes back to what I said about moving data. It's very cheap to move data, it's very expensive to move energy, but there's a lot of energy here. So what you don't want to do is build a data center right next to people where it's expensive for the land or where the energy is already being used. You want to build it where there aren't too many people, where the energy is underutilized, and that's the Middle East. So this is the ideal place to build out. In fact, when we're looking at the OpEx, the cost to run these chips, Saudi Arabia is actually cheaper than some of the Nordic countries.
Because of the energy availability.
Surplus, yeah.
Right. Who's going to pay for all of this, though? Because obviously the demand for compute is soaring, right? Not just in the GCC, but around the world. We're seeing GPUs also having supply chain challenges, and the energy equation, when it comes to AI, is still largely unsolved at this point.
Okay, so this is what all the investors in the world want to know. Is AI a bubble? What's up with these circular relationships? And if you think back, the beginning of the aviation industry, Boeing actually funded a lot of their vendors and partners in a very circular relationship. And it worked out for the aviation industry. It's why it exists today. There are some differences between that and the internet.com bubble. The main difference is, if you think about AI, you've got companies like OpenAI, Anthropic. These are two companies where if you double the amount of compute that they have, you double their revenue. In fact, I think Greg Brockman said they could 5x their revenue with just the models that they have today and the demand they have today if they got extra compute. Like when you go to Anthropic and you hit the rate limits, it's because there's not enough compute. When OpenAI runs slower than you would like, it's because they don't have enough compute. And so by unlocking that, what you're doing is you're allowing them to take a revenue stream that's going to occur over time. You give them the money now, they spend it on CapEx and it unlocks it. So this is not like the dot-com bubble. This is more like the aviation unlock that happened.
So is it fair to say you're confident that we are not in an AI bubble at this point, even when you look at some of the public market valuations around these big chip names in the United States?
Yeah, so there's subtlety and nuance here. So the thing is, as always, you do want a bubble because the bubble is the sign that there's a lot of economic activity going on and you just attract all sorts of people, right? It won't be long until you have AI-powered toothpaste, right? But when you focus on the real AI innovations, you can't put enough money into that and there will be great returns. There will also be people who make mistaken investments that don't return. The question is the amount of money that's paid into this AI boom going to be returned with interest? And I think the answer to that is yes. The question is, do you know how to invest in AI?